Hello, 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 beautiful ones. I think this is live. Possibly not. Yay! It works, I think. Hello, beautiful ones. Just 1 second while I just double check that this indeed work. Yes, I believe so. Um, mm, 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 mm. Okay, I think it works. Let's assume that it works. I do believe it's working. Okay, thank you for waiting with me there. Okay, dear ones, I have so much to share that I thought I would just jump on live stream and share rather than trying to write everything out. I want to talk to you today about a couple of different things. First of all, the power of proxy magic, and I'm going to share what that actually is. And also a little bit about how you will always feel disconnected if you are not living true to yourself, and the really subtle ways that that can show up in life. And as part of all of this as well, what we're really looking at here is the ending of fragmented ways of living, which very commonly shows up as, light workers, in particular those who are attempting to create a particular life for themselves. If you're trying to create, a beautiful life of your dreams and all of that wonderful stuff, and there can be a bit of a tendency to, you're doing your manifestation things, you're doing your ceremonies, you're doing your bits and pieces in your business, etc. And then outside of that, living ordinary day-to-day life, totally in your head, disconnected from yourself, disconnected from life around you, and all of this type of thing. And what often happens with this then is that we might be wondering, okay, I'm doing all of the things, why is it not materializing as the life that I really want? And the answer to that is fragmentation. Fragmentation, well, it's one of many answers, but it's a very big part of the puzzle. Because you see, the fabric of existence is a living substance. All of life around us is alive, it's breathing, it's got a consciousness, it's got an intelligence within it. And in this world, we have been trained to not see that. We have been deliberately trained to not recognize that life is actually alive. Strangely enough, the clue is a little bit in the name there, but we have been taught most of the time since before we were even born to perceive reality as something dead, as something that has no actual substance of its own, no life force of its own. It's just a thing. Your environment is just a thing. Life around you is just a thing. And you are, in the way society teaches it, this isolated existence that primarily is composed of the mind, the body, the egoic self, all of this type of thing, versus the truth that all of existence is a living substance and you are part of that. Not only are you a part of it, in other words, you are part of the whole, but the greater truth is that you are in fact the whole thing at the same time. This is where we start to go beyond personal egoic identity and start to tap into the greater truth that we are in fact the one life, the one being that is all things, that contains all things, and we are this living consciousness that is made up of everything. And when we start to learn to actually live from a place of ongoing and perpetual interaction with this living substance of our consciousness that makes up all things, formed and unformed, that's when we start to become very, very, very powerful in materializing the life that we actually want, but because we're starting to work with living universal principles. In contrast, when there is this disconnect that we try to do a little bit of stuff, within ourselves, we try to do our actions in our outer world, and other than that, we disconnect ourselves from the living fabric of life. We forget that the substance of consciousness that is all that is our own being, and we tune out from it. We treat it with disrespect, we treat it with disregard. We're stuck in our head, you know, moving through life rather than perpetually applying our higher attitudes, our higher perspectives, etc., to the living fabric of existence as we move through our day-to-day life. That's when you get that there is always going to be a gap between what you're yearning to manifest into being and what you have, because it's all you. The whole thing is you. So if we create this gap in our consciousness, we're always going to have that there is this void where everything that we are saying we want is not there because we've created the gap to begin with. When you kind of spell it out like this, it seems really obvious, but yet, of course, because of how we have been taught to function within our lives, within the human paradigm, this might not be obvious until it's explicitly pointed out this way. So I want to tell you a little story to illustrate this as well, and we'll tie this into then the power of proxy magic too. We've got our new home, we've got our beautiful forest property, something I have dreamed of forever and ever and ever. It's now ours, and we have been working on making it ready for us to live in. And there are a few, well, not a few, there's a lot of work that needs done. There's a lot of things that need to be prepared for us to be able to move into our new house. For a start, it's an unfinished house, so everything has to be finished within it. But in addition to that, there are various parts of it that have been very neglected. And for example, all of the timbers within our new house have been very badly neglected, never properly treated, and so on. And so there's a little bit of a problem with wet rot and various other not necessarily so desirable things. So we've been, you know, organizing all of these different logistical pieces that need taken care of. And I was in a hardware shop in our local town the other day, and I just asked, you know, what have you got for treatment of this wood? We need to take care of the wood. And the man handed me something, sold me something, and it didn't even occur to me to it didn't even occur to me that it might be something so profoundly toxic. I just didn't think that. It didn't occur to me that people would use something so profoundly toxic in their homes and in their environment and so on. And so I just purchased this thing without paying any attention, went to go and use it. And the second I opened it, my whole being reacted. My body just went, oh, no, this is not a nice thing at all. And actually within 24 hours after inhaling some of this stuff, it's that toxic, full of heavy metals and so on. And this is just the common thing that's used, and I later found out that people even use this on their beehives and so on, which is horrifying. And I've got a positive thing to tell you about that in a moment. And my skin actually broke out completely trying to detox the toxicity of even just inhaling the fumes of this, never mind it touching me or anything like that. And for a little while, I was just going through the motions of, okay, this is what I've been told you do, this is what we have to do, and I started using it. And after a while, I noticed that I felt really disconnected, that I felt like I was in my head, I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing, just nothing felt right. And I checked in with myself, and I realized what I was really feeling in that moment is my whole being was recoiling at the idea that even a single drop of this stuff would touch our septic tank. For example, we have a private septic tank that, you know, anything that goes through the sink, that goes through the tap is going to go in there. It's on our land, it's close to a waterway, it's going to touch all of the nature around it, etc. And in addition to that, what am I doing consciousness-wise within the living fabric of the universe to be engaging in this action that feels so wrong, and through proxy magic, is impacting all of life in ways that are far beyond what the ordinary eye can see. And I just put everything down and I realized, oh my God, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. There has to be an alternative. And there's a point to this story, okay? There has to be an alternative. And I went hunting, and it turns out there are alternatives available. They're not available in Ireland, shockingly. So I've had to order something from the UK, which is going to be a major hassle to get it here because it doesn't even ship to here, but never mind. That's what has to be done because it's that important. And this got me really contemplating a whole lot more on the importance of proxy magic, which is the main thing that I want to share with you today. What is proxy magic? Let's discuss that first. Proxy magic is whereby a highly conscious being recognizes that through their own life, they are a proxy for changes throughout all of cosmic existence to occur. And it is when we are consciously engaging every tiny little thing that we do. There's nothing small, there's nothing large, everything is of equal importance, in the full consciousness of recognizing our impact on the living field of existence. So what that looks like in practice is, for me, as an example, to have made the decision, oh my God, I have to do this a different way. I cannot use this horrible stuff. I have to seek out an alternative, even if it's a hassle, even if it's much more expensive, which it is, it's double the price. I will find a way to make this possible. And as I'm doing this, I'm doing it as a proxy, touching all of the living consciousness of existence with my being, with the intent that all awaken to the recognition of how horrific it is to use this biocide stuff in your home, in your environment, that's going to touch everything else. Everything is touched by everything else. That's the thing. This is one of the fundamental core principles of living true consciousness, is the recognition that one of the biggest fallacies in existence is the idea that we somehow are an isolated thing, everything is separated out. No, you are touching everything in existence, every moment, all at the same time, through your being. And proxy magic is where we start to act very consciously with that knowing, which acts as a proxy to affect all of life. Proxy magic is the most powerful way that we actually change the way things are unfolding on life on Earth. It's not through activism. It's not through protesting. It's not through getting upset about the fact that people put this stuff on their beehives, which again, like I said, is absolutely horrifying. It's not through any of this stuff. It's through designing our own lives as a proxy that we become a template through which all of existence is upgraded, uplifted, evolved by the way that we are living, because we know that not only are we touching and affecting the living fabric of existence, but we are the living fabric of existence. We have become so much in oneness with all that is that we are fully conscious and aware of how we are every day, in every moment, through every tiny little thought, feeling, action, influencing life. Here is what this has got to do as well with this disconnect that we feel when we're not being true to ourselves. Remember, I was talking a moment ago about the fragmentation that many lightworkers experience. Everybody experiences it, but we're speaking of lightworkers specifically here, where we try to do our little manifestation things, etc. Then we live disconnected from ourselves and wonder, why is nothing happening? How mysterious. Well, and I mean that, you know, with all the love in the world, because I've lived it myself, and I'm constantly finding places where this is the case. This is our journey. This is our journey of becoming fully conscious, and it's an everyday process. It's an everyday work of learning to dissolve all fragmentation and live in the full wholeness of absolute consciousness. That's the journey. It's never ending. It's never ending. And it's so humbling as well, you know, it's so humbling constantly to recognize the ways in which you're doing this and to understand on deeper and deeper levels the impact that you're actually having through all of the areas of unconsciousness. It's a profound journey. So here's the thing, you know, for many light workers, because of the way that we lived in the old cosmos, where the way that we best served, which has been obsolete as of 2006, by the way, the way that we best served in the old cosmos was by living the most challenge that we possibly could and pushing the evolution of life in that way. Since August of 2006, when there was a major cosmic pole shift, which, by the way, comes from the work of the great seer Amin. You can read about this in her book, The Ring of Truth. It has been the case for the light workers on this planet that the way that we best serve is by creating a life of most joy, most love, most abundance, most happiness, the most wonderful life that we possibly can for ourselves. And because of how it was in the past, many light workers struggle greatly with finding the impetus to do that for themselves. And we potentially, in some cases, excuse, oh, maybe it's okay to feel a bit of self-doubt here and there. Maybe it's okay to have low self-esteem and to harm myself, you know, through eating bad foods and not taking care of myself properly and so on. Many light workers struggle to find the impetus to do it for themselves. But if we can understand proxy magic, we start to really understand that you're learning to be in self-love. It's not just for yourself. It's that as you're learning to be in self-love, as an example, recognizing your oneness with the living consciousness of existence, you are establishing self-love for all beings on earth. As you care for and nurture and nourish your inner child, you're taking care of and nourishing and nurturing all the children in the world who are abused, who don't have loving homes, who don't have enough food, all of this type of thing. That's proxy magic. As you learn moment by moment to come home to yourself deeply and care for yourself deeply, 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 untangle all of the patterns of your ancestors, of your family line, the societal programming, etc., that has been carried around for so many generations and so many eons before that, you're doing it on behalf of all of life. And the more that you recognize yourself as a proxy being, which is to say, the more that you recognize that you are one with the living fabric of existence and you're touching it at all times, and you start to interact with that moment by moment as you practice, rather than living with the fragmentation, the more profound your impact becomes. You will always, 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 we will always, always feel disconnect if we are not being true to ourselves. In the case of the example that I gave, the story that I told you, for me, I had been told by a man in a shop, this is the way you do it. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went along with what I was told, didn't question it, and then as soon as I got into it, I felt something was wrong in my being. That's the thing that we need to be watching out for. That sense, something is fundamentally wrong, I can feel it in the core of my soul, is the thing to be watching out with. And it can be in the tiny, small, everyday ways that we're living, like what I just described. It can be in the big, 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 the whole way I'm living my life is wrong. It can be in the big, 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 I am not living the life that I truly desire to live. I know that there's something else for me out there and I'm not being true to myself. But we have been trained, just as we've been trained with everything else of this nature by human society, to suppress that impulse. We've been trained unintentionally, well-meaningly in a lot of cases by our parents, by our family, by our teachers, by our peers, by our friends. We've been trained by everybody in our lives to suppress that impulse something is wrong. There's a disconnect here. There's a disconnection because I am not being true to myself in this moment, which means I'm going along with something that has come from somebody else, whether it's a person or it's society at large, and not what's true to me. My invitation for you today is twofold. Number one, threefold in fact. Number one, start to become a lot more watchful for those places where you feel something is wrong here. Something is not aligned. I feel disconnected from myself. If you feel disconnected, it 100% means you are not being true to yourself in that moment, whatever that is going to mean. The more you can start to actually listen to that impulse, the more powerfully you're going to be in a place to do something about it. Listening to the impulse is the very first thing. Taking it seriously, trusting it, honoring it. Number two, start to recognize more powerfully the impact of proxy magic, and that proxy magic is the most powerful way that we affect life on Earth. It's not through any of the other stuff, it's through this. How can you apply that more deeply? And number three, start to recognize in a much deeper way the living nature of existence and explore the ways in which you're living fragmentation, like all of us are, in our own ways. See what you can do about closing those gaps, because the more you combine all three of those, the more profoundly you are going to be able to have an impact on life, not just on the Earth, but throughout cosmic existence, and facilitate in profound, mind-blowing ways the birth of a new Earth for all of life to share in. So, dear ones, I hope this has helped you today. I am excited, for one, about the way that I am building my new home by proxy for all of life. And I feel such joy in my heart knowing that as I'm doing this, I am beautifully and beneficially affecting all of existence and all of you beautiful ones that I connect with as well. It's just such a lovely thought. So have a play with that as well for yourself in your own way. Thank you so much for tuning in. Much love.